Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. It's Tuesday night. Welcome to another edition of In the Prog Seat. We've got Team A in the house. George Lamie, Chuck Alvarez, and Anthony Ferraro. Howdy, gentlemen. What's going on?
Greetings and good evening.
Greetings, salutations. Yeah.
It's hot.
Oh
man.
George, hot isn't the word for it. George, what's it like in Chicago? It sucks over here.
80 and rainy.
Well, I know you send the rain my way, but it's like 95 in New York.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's incredible. I didn't even want to go outside today. I've been working from home, and I was like, I just stayed indoors by the air conditioning all day.
Yeah, it was not good. I went for a swim first thing this morning, and I just went for one a little while ago. And that was like really, other than to go out to the gym today, that was the only time I ventured outside. It was murderous.
Oh, man.
But anyway, enough about the weather. This isn't Friday morning at the Funhouse with Martin Popoff. This is in the Prog Seat. So today it's all about our favorite solo albums from members of the Big Five. Some of you are probably saying, who the hell are the Big Five? Well, most people, not everybody. I'm sure we're going to get some people that are going to disagree here. The Big Five are, yes, Genesis, Pink Floyd, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and King Crimson. I know people have said, well, what about Jethro Tull? What about Camel? What about Gentle Giant, Van de Graaff, Generator? Well, maybe we'll circle back and at some point we'll tackle the next set. But for now, these are the Big Five. These are the ones, generally considered the big daddies. Arguably the Moody Blues could be in here as well. But we're going to go with that fivesome. And we've each picked out 5 solo albums from members who have been in that band at some point. We're trying to go with like solo albums here, right? Because I know there's a lot of bands that came from these bands and all this kind of stuff. So, but it's kind of like open for interpretation. So we're going to go, let's see. I always like to start at the bottom. So we're going to go Anthony, Chuck, George, and myself, and we'll keep going round and round until we get back to number 1. So Anthony, who you got for number 5?
Number 5 comes from 1980. Former King Crimson vocalist John Wetton, Caught in the Crossfire. Kind of a little precursor of what Asia was going to start doing, kind of more AOR-ish, but Martin Barre plays on 4 tunes. One of my favorite tracks is Paper Talk, the title track, Turn on the Radio. Very AOR-ish, but I think they're great songs. So I'm going with John Wetton, Caught in the Crossfire, 1980, just after UK breaks up. He goes and does an album, and after listening to it, you can see where Asia was going to go from what they were going to do next when they joined the supergroup. So John Wetton, plays on 3 fantastic King Crimson records. I mean, fantastic records. I remember reading an article. He thought he was going to be in that band for 20 years, but Fripp pulled the plug. So John Wetton, Caught in the Crossfire, 1980.
Good choice. Yeah, that is a good album.
It really is a good album.
May not be a prog album, but who cares? It's a good solo album, right? Yeah. Yeah. He's got what a voice, that guy had.
Oh, I miss him, man.
I miss him.
Oh, man. Well, once again, good evening, guys. My number 5 is probably going to be a bit of a shocker here. Not too many people think too much of this member of this great band. This is from the 3rd of May in 1981. Nick Mason's Fictitious Sports. What's a very much like a cross between like the Beatles and like early Pink Floyd. A lot of big band pop stuff is on there. It's a pretty good album. It's always been one of my favorites, and I wanted to go outside the box, and this is an album I used to listen to quite a bit. Have it on cassette tape. So let's say this is one of my favorite albums. Nick Mason, Fictitious Sports, my number 5 from 1981.
Cassette
tape. Carla Bley is all over that record.
Yep.
And some Canterbury fans would enjoy it because there's 2 Robert Wyatt tracks on there.
Yes.
Very cool.
I remember a buddy of mine who was a huge Pink Floyd fan, like in the late 80s, ordered it on cassette from our favorite record store, and he hated it. Absolutely. I don't think he was prepared for what he was listening to.
Not very Pink Floyd-y, right?
No,
not at all.
Not at all.
Oh, well. George, what do you got?
All right. My number 5 is Mraz Bruford, Flags, 1985. Thank you, Chuck. I have files for that one. It's the second of 2 albums that these guys did together. 2 guys from Yes that never played in Yes together. It's hard to describe the music. The first one was very austere, very jazz, very cold classical. This one, they warmed it up a little bit. You got electric keyboards, even some electric drums. Temples of Joy, the lead track, it's great, you know, really good tune. But honestly, the whole thing is pretty good. It's just a couple of softy tunes, and they're the shortest ones on the album. So, yeah, Mraz Bruford, Flags.
Like title track at Galatea's Prog, 2 pretty good songs on there. So it's a darn good album.
So George, how would you rate it on the softy scale?
It's pretty strong. If you're gonna have a couple, make them short, and they're on the back.
So like a 2, maybe 3, something like that.
Yeah.
You got to come up with a softy scale now, right?
Yeah, I got to think about that.
There we go.
There we go. All right. 1981. Greg Lake. Right there. First solo album, self-titled. You know, it's got Gary Moore on it. What more do you need to say? It's got that voice. It's kind of, you know, this album I look at very similarly to the album that Anthony was talking about by Wetton. It's more of like a just rock album with pop and hard rock leanings. It's got a little bit of prog on it, but not really. But man, you know, he sounds amazing. Gary Moore sounds great. You got Tommy Iyer on keyboards on here. Ed McKenna's on drums. I mean, Nuclear Attack, killer song. Love You Too Much, Someone, The Lie, Retribution Drive. Really solid record. I honestly don't really like any of the other Greg Lake solo albums, but I like this one. I think
that's a pretty good album.
Right, isn't it? I remember when it came out. I remember the first time I heard Nuclear Attack on the radio. I'm like, oh, who the hell is that? I know that voice. Who is that playing guitar? I'm like, no, that's Gary Moore. So yeah, Greg Lake, self-titled, is my number 5.
I have the live
King Biscuit.
That's pretty good.
Scorching. Oh,
yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's good because they play like those old ELP tunes with like no keyboards and Gary Moore doing all the stuff on the guitar, which is amazing.
And they open up with Nuclear Attack too, so which is pretty.
That song used to get a lot of airplay here in New York City.
It absolutely did. Up by me too. Yep. Yeah, I think New York kind of picked up on that for whatever reason. Now I'm glad they did, but yeah.
Oh man, so happy about that. I'm also like that. That live King Biscuit? He's just fantastic. Another guy I miss very much, man.
Yeah, both of them, and they're both left us so close together. It's like, oh man.
You know, most of those King Biscuits are actually they're good. Usually,
they're all really good
podcasts.
Yeah, they're all really good. I mean, I have that one. I've got the Humble Pie one. I have the Robin Trower one. I have a Pat Travers one. I have a Trapeze
I have a
one.
Gentle Giant one.
I have that one too. That one's great as well. Yeah, there's so many of them. They're all really good. All really good. Great stuff. All right, Anthony, what do you got? Number 4.
Number 4 comes from the ex-singer of the Fab Five in the prog genre and my favorite solo album by him, Peter Gabriel, Scratch from 1978. Very dark. Fripp produced, plays on it, but stellar tracks. Animal Magic, on what was that called?
On the Air.
On the Air. There we go. On the Air. But my favorite is White Shadow. Jesus.
Thank you.
I'm really starting to get tongue-tied here. No, White Shadow is one of my all-time favorite Gabriel tunes. Just gorgeous. I've always loved this record. It's so dark, and it was recorded in New York City, and Fripp had that mood and the guitar sound. And of course, when they went on tour, I know on the previous tour, Fripp was playing behind the curtain. Tony Levin on bass, Jerry Morato on drums, Larry Fast on keyboards. Heck of a band. Would have been fantastic to see live. So number 4 is Peter Gabriel, Scratch. That's my number 4 favorite solo record from the Big Five.
Excellent.
His first 3 albums are so good. I mean, his first bunch are really good, but the first three are just like. All right, Chuck.
Well, I'm going to piggyback off of Anthony and go a little bit further with Robert Fripp's debut. What's a Exposure, which also has a track from that album we just mentioned. Robert Fripp, you just see that he was just lightning shades ahead of most of the people that he was playing with, and the direction that he went with over here, the ambience and that deep, dark guitar, and Exposure, the song that he did with Peter Gabriel. Just an amazing album. I'm surprised that sadly that John Wetton didn't make it onto these albums, although he was part of the sessions with Phil Collins, and didn't make his tracks didn't make it on there. So, but still, Exposure is my number 4 from Robert Fripp, 1978.
Don't worry, I'm sure it's going to make it on the box set. There's supposedly a box set coming out sometime this year. It's probably like 30 discs.
I heard about that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he definitely went some different directions on that album, which is pretty cool and pretty different. But that's Fripp. You never know where he's going to go next. I'm sure not many people thought 40 years ago that he'd be making YouTube videos with his wife doing Metallica and Scorpions covers, right? But, it's...
Now watch, Chuck, my favorite... I'm not a huge Peter Hamill fan, but my favorite Hamill vocal is Chicago on that record. Absolutely just scorching.
Just kills it. Mm-hmm. Kills it, man. Mm-hmm. Which I love. Well, you know how much I love Hamill, but anyway. Oh, man.
All right, George, what do you got?
My number 4, 1976, Patrick Moraz, The Story of I. Perhaps a divisive record. I remember when it came out, a lot of Yes fans found it too eclectic, I think. It's a little bit out there. Some of the vocals on it are a little unusual, and musically maybe a little more adventurous than they were counting on. Mm-hmm. He went out and hired all fusion guys, Jeff Berlin on bass, Alphonse Mouzon on drums, and Ray Gomez on guitar. But don't get too excited. They don't do a whole lot other than play support. But play well. I mean, nothing to complain about, but kind of plays out like one long song on both sides. Thematically kind of connected, but I've always liked it for whatever reason. So I'll go with Story of I, 1976.
That's a good one. I like it. Yeah, it is a little weird, but it's good.
Especially for the supporting cast. So I was like you said, I was expecting more of a blazer, because I've always loved Alphonse Mouzon. And then you have Jeff Berlin on the bass, but it's still a strong album. I agree with you. It's actually a pretty good album. Mm-hmm.
All right. I should have done it first with number 5, but I'm going to do it at number 4. I'm going to pull a Pardo. I'm going to pull a Mulligan right here, right now. So tied for number 4. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Should have been tied for number 5. Whatever. It's been a long day, guys. David Gilmour, 1978. All right, his first solo album is a really good one. It's probably more of a rock album than I think the ones that came after it. Well, maybe it rocks a little bit more, I should say. But man, there's some great stuff on here. And, mostly instrumentals. The vocals are good, but man, Mahalis, short and sweet. There's No Way Out of Here, Cry from the Street. The whole thing is good. And some really, really tasty guitar work. I like the production of it as well. I Can't Breathe Anymore. Just really, really good stuff. And I think the solo album we wanted from him, and he would go on and do some poppy stuff, I think, on some of the later albums, but still his solo albums, I think, were always really, really solid. I like all of them, but I think I like this one just a little bit more than the others. And also coming in a tie for number 4, gotta have Journey to the Center of the Earth from Rick Wakeman.
Beautiful.
I was sitting there putting my list together, and I'm like, holy shit, I don't have any Rick Wakeman in my top 5. That is just cannot happen. So, and then it's like, well, which one do you pick, right? Because his first 3 or 4 are really good. But I kind of like this one the best. Of course, this was recorded at the Royal Albert Hall, and it's this big production, but he actually, put together a really good band here. He's got Ashley Holt on vocals, and it's just big, bombastic Rick Wakeman at his very best. And there's just Moog synthesizer and Hammond and you know, piano all over the place on here. It's big, it's huge, it's awesome, and this is progressive rock, big time. So it's got to be
quite the showman. Quite the
right.
showman.
Yep, absolutely.
It's, as you would say in Prog, loud, bombastic, pretentious.
Yes, all of the above, and then some. Yeah,
just to piggyback on
different from each other.
Just to piggyback on what you're saying about David Gilmour's self-titled "Raise My Rent," gorgeous tune.
Yeah, the guy is the master of, you know, the melody. I mean, not many guys can play such a memorable melody with like a third the notes that so many other guys can, right? That's what makes.
Well, it's that tone. It's that tone. It's just that tone and feel is just.
Yep, that guy on a Stratocaster, man, just it works. It works. So that was my number. Those are my number 4s. So I know I suck. I just made it all about 6. Oh well.
So we have a duplicate. I'm at number 3. 1976. Mirage, Story of I. Pretty much everything George said. I've been a fan. I bought this probably mid-90s because I was scarfing up anything Yes solo, and for some reason I bought it in the summertime, and it's a summertime record for me. The key, as you said, the players are more of like a support. You don't really can't tell Jeff Berlin's on there. You can't tell Muzan's drumming, but I'll tell you, the keyboards, his tone is just unbelievable. And you know, the vocalist he picked out, John McBurney, it sounds fantastic. I know it's kind of like one long song for like 14 tracks, and it's got some Middle Eastern influences, some Indian influences, but man, some of the keyboard synth passages on there, unbelievable, especially like on The Best Years of Our Lives is one of the good ones, and Dancing Now is another one with some fantastic synth passages. I am getting brain farts when it comes to naming titles of songs tonight. What the heck is my problem? Story of I, 1976, Patrick Moraz. That's my number 3.
You either got the olds or you got heat stroke.
Oh,
both.
Both.
Probably the olds. The pixie dust from Chris Allo's fingers are permeating the airwaves. Right?
Oh man, my number 3 is Bill Bruford's Earthworks, Fancy. Footloose and Fancy Free, from 2002. This is more jazz oriented. When he took the Earthworks into a more jazz oriented form. I seen him during this tour at the Bottom Line twice actually. And this album, the title track is beautiful. Simplicity. He actually did some pretty good jazz numbers on here. The Wooden Man Sings and the Stone Who Would. What's a great album? This one over here? Footloose and Fancy Free, Bill Bruford's Earthworks is my number 3.
Boy, the Bottom Line, that's a nice place.
Yeah.
I haven't been there in probably like 30 years, Chuck.
Well, you know, it closed down in 2006, I think. Yeah, it just killed me, man.
Yeah. All those famous little clubs in New York City, right, that had played jazz on a regular basis. That was one of them. Yep. All right, George. Number 3.
Number 3. Trevor.
Beautiful.
Jacaranda.
Love it.
So make some enemies here and say that to me he kills all the other guitar players in these bands, including Steve Howe. For me, he's a much more interesting player, definitely better technician. Great at everything. Great producer. This production is sumptuous. A great singer, but he doesn't sing on this. This is pretty much all instrumental. There's one song with like an ethereal girl. It's like a soundtrack music song, but it's good. It's mostly him on the whole record. You got Vinnie Colaiuta on 2 tracks and Al Wilkenfeld on 1 track. But other than that, it's him, and his son plays on a couple tracks. He's a decent drummer. Market Street, just go YouTube that song. It's incredible. All the different instrumentation he's got going there. Through the Tunnel is the other Vinnie song. That's really good. Basically the whole thing, though. It's really good. Very close to me putting it at my number 2, but in the end, I put it at number 3.
I completely forgot about Trevor Rabin.
I like that album.
That's a very good album, and I like Can't Look Away as well.
Yep. Good stuff on that.
Yeah, I completely spazzed and forgot about Trevor Rabin. I definitely have the olds. I definitely have the olds. All right. Number 3. More Peter Gabriel here. I'm going to go with the third album. What do they call this one other than Peter Gabriel?
Melt.
Melt. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can remember that. I just can't remember the tracks on it.
Yeah. Well, this is the first one I ever heard, so I have always had a special kind of kinship with this album. Believe it or not, they play like 3 or 4 songs from this album on my local radio station here. Amazing.
And Through the Wire.
Exactly. And I remember the first time I heard Games Without Frontiers, I was like, who the hell is that? I love that. I mean, it's such a weird song to hear on the radio, but yeah. So, I mean, geez, No Self-Control. I don't remember. Biko.
I don't remember.
I had a roommate in college in 1984 who loved Peter Gabriel. And, here I am, this 18-year-old metalhead, right? And, he was always playing Peter Gabriel and the Grateful Dead and the Who. And, I like most of that stuff. But, man, whenever he would put Biko on, he would sit there and walk around our room and he would do this. He would just walk around like he was in a trance. And I'm looking at him. Now I get it. All these years later, I totally get it. But yeah, this is a great album. Musicians on it are fantastic. We know who they all are, and Pete sounds amazing on here. I love this to death. So that is my number 3.
Excellent.
Back to Anthony.
All right, my number 2 comes from 1978. Comes from Mr. Richard Wright, Wet Dream. This album is a type of album that a Pink Floyd member should have made, because when you hear it, it's very Floydy sounding. He recruited Mel Collins to play sax. I'm not a big sax fan, but man, the tasty sax parts in this are fantastic. And Rick Wright has a decent voice, but all in all, if you're a big Floyd fan, this is something you should seek out. It's got that Floyd kind of really atmospheric, kind of chill vibe, and the keys, the synths are just the passages are so tasty and atmospheric, and it's just an all in out great album. I never even knew this album existed, and then we were in a record store in 1989. So, vinyl wasn't very popular. So we used to have vinyl and crates on the floor, and we were looking and we were thumbing through, and all of a sudden we see Rick Wright, Wet Dream, what's this? So one of us bought it for like $3, and I guess the rest is history. And One Way Records, which is a defunct label, reissued this in like 1994, had to have it. So very Floyd sounding record. Love it. It's my number 2 from 1978, Wet Dream.
Is that one of those long out of print on CD that are now going for like $100 if you can find it?
No, it's pretty reasonable. You can get it.
Yeah, really? Okay.
Yeah, between $20 and $30.
No, that's doable.
All right.
Yeah, Mel Collins, man, he showed up everywhere.
Everywhere. She's one of those dinosaurs as well, man. Camel. We can go on. King Crimson.
Play with everybody.
Oh man. Well, my number 2 is from one of my favorite guitarists. His third solo album from 1979. One of Anthony's favorite as well. Spectrum Mornings. Steve Hackett.
Check for Trap 4.
Yes, yes, I won't go there. But serious playing on here every day. Clocks? The title track of Spectrum Mornings, Tiger Mouth. It's just an amazing album. Track number 5.
Track number 5.
But an amazing album. He finally put this group together. Peter Hicks on vocals, Dick Cadbury on bass. Who else he had on there? Peter Hicks, John Scherer on drums. Which is just an amazing band, and his brother on flute and on sometimes a rhythm keyboard. And this album right here, just absolutely great stuff from Steve Hackett. This proves how much Genesis lost out when he left them, man. And that right there, his third solo album, and perhaps, in my opinion, his best album that he did. Spectrum Mornings is my number 2, 1979.
Great one.
Chuck, that Everyday solo is so iconic. So good. And his brother, I miss his brother in his band. Man, his brother could play flute.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, man. Mm-hmm.
Good pick. Good pick. All right, George.
My number 2.
Nitty-gritty.
Rick Wakeman.
Beautiful.
Six Wives.
Six Wives.
Mm-hmm.
Like Pete said, you can't really have a list like this without Wakeman. And this is the one going way back with me when I first got into Yes. And someone showed me this pretty much right after that. And then, that the fact that he quoted some of the stuff from this in his solo on Yes songs really sold it. It's neoclassical, really. I mean, it's more neoclassical than prog rock. Kind of foreshadows all those Shrapnel albums of the mid 80s. You just got to change the guitar to keyboard, and it's a lot of the same structures. I've never heard anybody admit that that's an influence, but you could say that. The opener and closer are the best. A couple of the Kathy songs, Aragon and Par. Those are probably my favorites, but actually the whole album is good. So just to have it a little bit above the Raven, and definitely above the rest of the stuff. I think it ends out. So, Wakeman.
Yeah, it's top shelf Rick Wakeman.
Yep.
Without a doubt.
Can't beat that album, man.
All right. Man, this one could even be my number 1, but I'm going to put it at number 2 today. Fish Out of Water, Chris Squire. I mean, to me, this is the best solo album from any guy that was ever in Yes. I mean, this could be a Yes album. All it's missing is a little Steve Howe, really, and John Anderson. It's just, I mean, so many great songs on here. I mean, Hold Out Your Hand. How wonderful is that? How great are his vocals on here, man? It's just amazing. Silently Falling. I mean, Safe, You by My Side. I mean, the whole thing is just really, really good. I love it. It's just such a lovely, lovely album. And this Esoteric reissue remaster from a couple of years ago is splendid. If you don't already have it, check it out. So yeah, Fish Out of Water, 1975.
Another great bassist dead, man.
Yep.
6 years already.
I know. Yeah, it's crazy.
And John Entwistle, geez, 19. Anyway.
Yeah.
Brother At.
Number 1. 1975, Chris Squire, Fish Out of Water. Utterly pure magic. When you have Bruford and Mraz and Squire together, you get magic. This is Silently Falling is fantastic. Lucky 7 is fantastic. Safe Cannon Song is fantastic. Hold Out Your Hand, You by My Side, pure magic. This thing is just it's just on a t. It's probably my number 1 favorite Yes solo album, just edging out Luis's favorite, Elias's Son Hillo, just by a hair, by his one of his long curly hairs. But this album is fantastic. I think it was the first one released when they were going to agree to do a solo album in 75, 76. It's just, when Squire died, in my opinion, Yes died. This guy vocally, as an axeman, just unreal, fantastic. There's nothing I can say about this. This is absolutely, if you don't have this, you're a Yes fan, and you don't have this, shame on you.
Exactly. I agree.
It is a masterpiece.
It really is, man.
He was the heart and soul of Yes from day one. Yeah, I mean,
him passing was that just, I can't see Yes as the same band anymore. I had a hard time looking at Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe the same way. I'm like, because I saw them during that tour too. They were pretty good, but no Squire, no Yes for me.
I think that's what makes Yes songs so magical. The harmonies between John Anderson and Squire. I mean, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, I've seen them so many times with him, and I've seen them a couple times without him, and it's not quite the same. Although the last time I saw them with him at Radio City Music Hall, they sounded a bit tired, and I think that was kind of the beginning, and then I've seen him a couple times without him, and I'm like, Billy does a fine job.
Oh, he's awesome, man, but
yeah,
not the same. It's like a tribute band now.
Yeah, there's something.
It is, yeah.
little something missing. And, you know, I mean, the last couple of times I saw him with Alan, I mean, I was like, well, Alan needs to kind of step aside, I think. And, you know, now it's like, it's basically just, you know, it's Steve. And, you know, Steve just seems to be going through the motions. I don't know. I mean, I still respect him and all that kind of stuff, but for me, it's like, it's almost like it's time, you know. Sometimes you have bands you love that you go to see them and you're like, you know what, I love you guys, but it might be time to hang it up soon. I mean, you know, give them all the credit to, I mean, they have the right to go out and work, right? I mean, it's all about, but it's
still
just
have that fan base.
Yeah, they do. I mean, there's people that will go see them till the end, and that's cool. And I might be one of them from time to time, you know, because sometimes I don't go see them for a couple of years. I'm like, I get the kind of like the hanging to go to a Yes concert. But man, the last time I saw them a couple of years ago, I was like, oh man, I just wasn't enjoying it. And I've seen them like 15 times. I've never said that before. So
I don't know if you guys would agree, but I'd way rather see ARW do the Yes stuff than actual.
Exactly.
Same and I saw them too, and they were fantastic.
Yep. Same here.
That's done now too. So you know, unfortunately.
All right. Well, my number one is Peter Gabriel's fourth album, Security.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
What's that? 7 of the 8 songs on this album constitute my top 10 Peter Gabriel songs. Just love this album. I think that this album here is just timeless. San Jacinto, you know, I Have the Touch, The Family and the Fishing Net, Lay Your Hands on Me, The Rhythm of the Heat. And I said, just everything on here is just fantastic. From 1982, Peter Gabriel's fourth album, Security, labeled Security afterward. Just a timeless album. Great, great, great album. That's my number one.
The grooves on that album.
Oh,
never
man.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, incredible. Incredible.
Yeah. I mean, you could probably say the first 5 Gabriel solo albums are pretty mandatory, right?
I would say so.
Yep.
That's my number one.
All right, George.
You had to guess the fusion guy would bring the fusion.
Yeah.
1979, second of the 3 Bruford albums, and easily the best to me. I mean, I honestly can't stand the vocals on either of the other ones. Wisely, they kept them in the shelf for this one. The last great fusion album of the 70s, in my opinion. It's just it's flawless. There's no bad songs on this, nothing even close. Even Holdsworth's not my favorite writer. Even his song on here is good. It's just a perfect album, and no small part to Dave Stewart's co-collaboration. He's
love Stewart.
Yeah,
love him.
And Bruford was really a good pairing, but not to say the least about Berlin and Holdsworth too. But one of a kind, my number one.
Excellent.
So I really wanted to pick that, and there's a couple reasons why I didn't.
Same here.
Because I mean, I just did a show with the other Prog with Team B like a couple weeks ago about Bruford, and I gushed about it on that show, and I'm like, all right, I don't want to do it again. And then I thought about it, and George, maybe you disagree, but the Bruford felt more like a band than a solo album to me. That's why I didn't go for it, but because it would have been my number one easily. That's the first one I thought of. I'm like, oh, Bruford's got to be that. Then I'm like,
the first one, exactly. But between that and Chris Squire's debut, so those are the 2 albums I was like, oh, but I was like, I kind of had a feeling that everyone's going to pick it. So I actually just left it to the side. But just a timeless album, you know, the Sahara of Snow.
Amazing. It's amazing. It's. I ultimately went with Voyage of the Acolyte by Steve Hackett, which to me is a wonderful album, just a wonderful album. As much as I love the one you picked, Chuck, I like this one a little bit better, but those are the top 2 without a doubt. I mean, you know, we all know the songs on here, Ace of Wands and all these great songs on this album. And I just,
Shadow of Hierophant.
Yeah, I mean, his guitar tone is amazing. You got the Mellotron and all, just lush instrumentation, and the vocals are great. You know, you got Phil on here who just sounds amazing. And yeah, it's just one of those albums, you know, you listen to this and it's like, man, if only he stayed in Genesis. But
only if they let him write more songs.
Right. He came to the party with him all the time. He's like, what do you think about this? Well, maybe not. All right. You know what? You guys, I'm going to go ahead and do a solo career. That's but it's like you listen to, especially the first couple solo albums, they could have been Genesis songs, every one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So so I had this one at my number one, but like I said, there's a couple others that I kind of kept like the Bruford is, you know,
yeah,
that's a real band. I think that's why I kind of like felt bad. I was like, all right, you know. Plus, I knew George was going to pick it anyway. So, all right, who's got honorable mentions? Anthony, what do you got? Any?
Yeah, I got one here. This is going to be an odd one, but another vocalist in the King Crimson Canon, Adrian Belew, Inner Revolution from 1992. It's not a prog record, but his guitar playing, his vocals, his whole vibe. I mean, he's one of my favorites, and this is probably my favorite. I saw him 2 years ago, and he played Big Blue Sun off this, this is kind of like it has some Crimson style to it, but it also has, he's a big Beatles fan. And if you listen to a lot of blues soul records, a lot of Beatles type tunes on there with big choruses and just fantastic. So this is my honorable mention, Inner Revolution from 1992.
Cool.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Well, I have one that actually was outside of the top five. Was actually dealing with something that Brother Antler mentioned from a band that he's not too crazy about. Peter Hamill's The Silent Caller and the Empty Stage. You know, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is his third solo album.
Might be his best too.
I love this album. You know, so that it's him with a piano on some songs, but then he has his former Van de Graaff Generator mates on there with him, and so just a great album. You know, I actually like this quite a bit. And it could actually not. I wouldn't say that it could be a Van de Graaff Generator album, because you could tell that there's a difference between it. He's a bit more emotive here. You know, he's not as mad and crazed as he is, like everyone considers him to be on Van de Graaff Generator. But once again, that's one of my albums, The Silent Corner and the Empty Stage from 1974.
Yeah, it's a great one. But isn't it crazy, though, that he breaks the band up and then goes and does a solo album and brings them all into play on the solo album?
Only Peter.
Strange, I tell you.
In fact, they never, like before the like Near Fest, they never played the States in their prime, did they?
Well, they only played in Europe. You know, they only played here once, and that was in 1976, and the show was like outstanding. It's just the fact that they had to fund it themselves, because unlike Genesis, you know, Genesis had a following worldwide. You know, Van de Graaff Generator, you know, they're just kind of just too eclectic for too many people. You know, even people that love that type of style of music just can't get into him or that band. You know, so they came here once, and the show went down very well. Jordan Rudess was at that show, and he speaks very highly of it. Somebody else, I think Steve Vai, if I'm not mistaken. Someone else is also was at that show. Yeah, but that's my album right here. That's the reason why I said just too strange of a band.
The Italians loved them, though. They toured Italy all the time.
Geez, they're like the Beatles out there. You know, they have to have like armed security to keep you guys safe.
If you read up on the history of like the early days of some of the bands from the Charisma label, they like Genesis, Van de Graaff, and Lindisfarne toured Italy all the time, and they were right. They were like superstars there.
Oh, they were like gods, man. Jeez,
yeah.
You know?
Meanwhile, the rest of the world was like Van de who? Van de Graaff.
Did they hear the voice?
Van de Graaff refrigerator? Who the hell is
Wasn't
that?
some of the early like Nursery Crime a big seller in Italy too, Chuck?
Yeah, very much. Very much a seller. You know, Lindisfarne actually had a couple of songs that they played here. You know, they were kind of like, what would you call Lindisfarne? They were like a band. You know, they were like a more like
a rootsy,
yeah, kind of like that. And so, but they were like a bar band. You know, these guys, you know, according to the guys from Genesis, those were the guys that they used to get drunk with.
I think the correct terminology for a band like that is pub rock.
Yeah,
exactly. Pub rock.
I never liked that term personally, but I know.
Oh man,
I know the Brits think pub rock.
Right. Well, they said they were big drinkers, man.
That's probably why they call them that.
You consider that Genesis was the biggest influence on all those pasta prog bands. I mean,
oh yeah,
yeah, totally.
Yeah,
and you actually hear it too, but groups like Banco and Leon, man, these guys, they can play their asses off, man. Yeah. Oh, but that's another thing for another time, man.
Yeah,
I get into that and start getting a little too happy.
Italians heard Core the Crimson King and Trespass, and they were like, "Whoop, that's what we're gonna do." All right. Like, bring out the Mellotrons and the Hammonds, flutes.
Oh man, don't forget the vocals, man.
We have something to do now.
The operatic voices, man.
Right.
I would have loved to have seen those bands in their prime, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a pretty cool time machine thing to do, to go back to like 1972 and go see like a little prog rock festival somewhere in Italy and get to see like, Le Orme and Banco and PFM and Bonzo and all these crazy bands.
Oh man,
Semiramis and all that stuff. Just
so many great guitars. Anthony, are you into any of the Italian bands?
I'm sorry.
Are you into any of the Italian bands?
Oh, we need to change that.
You can have Ken make fun of me tomorrow.
Was it the vocals?
Oh man,
I've never really explored. Probably, I don't know. I know, Ken or Greg Walker used to tell me how beautiful the language is.
It is. That's we're doing a show that'll air next week where we're going to be doing our favorite non-English speaking progressive bands, and
no can, right?
What's that?
no can.
No magma.
No magma.
Oh, no magma.
Definitely no magma. No. But it's going to be hard not to just pick all Italian bands. I mean, I literally have to. I'm gonna, but the Spaniards will read it as well.
The
and
French,
French bands,
French.
Yep. So the Italians, that stuff is gorgeous to listen to. I'm Italian, but I don't speak a lick of it. But man, you listen to that stuff, and I'm like, feeling going to get a pot of pasta going, and getting out the bread and sipping a little, just put you in the mood, man. Anthony, you don't know what you're missing. I'm telling you.
Oh man.
Vogues and Mellotrons. Oh my! You got to check it out. George, honorable mentions. What do you got?
I zoned on the Chris Squire. I would put the Chris Squire Fish Out of Water in there. And commenting on his backup vocals, I think it really annoyed me when the Van Halen reunion album came and they were like, everyone was all apoplectic that Michael Anthony wasn't going to be doing backup vocals. We're going to miss it so much. And I'm thinking, have you guys heard Chris Squire's backup vocals? That's way beyond Michael Anthony. I mean, to me, it was ridiculous. I don't think he gets lauded anywhere near as much.
It's a very similar thing, though. It's like Michael and Chris both. I mean, those backing vocals were always there, and it was such a part of their music. So Chris was always there. Squire was always there. Now he's not. So, all right, for me, I'm not a huge fan of Steve Howe's first two solo albums. I think musically there's some great stuff on there, but man, those vocals.
I'm not either. I'm not either.
However, give me Turbulence any day of the week. This is
same here.
This is really good. This is what I want to hear from Steve Howe. This is just all burning instrumental stuff. Fantastic. That's what I want. I think if you take the best material, all the instrumental material off the Steve Howe album and Beginnings and put them together, that's a pretty good album. But I think this is even better. And then I couldn't decide from these two. I think the first three John Anderson solo records are pretty dynamite. But I pulled the first two for today. So it's Elias of Sun Hilo and Song of Seven. both really good. I mean, it's just basically just sounds like very Yes-like without a lot of the bombast. It's a little more kind of ethereal sounding, but he sounds fantastic on it. And the first is all him. This one, he's actually got a band going, and it sounds a little more like a band, but really lovely stuff on those albums. And even the third album he did is quite good.
It's pretty good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't Simon Phillips on one of those?
Yeah, he's on the third one, or he toured with him.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Simon sounds good with anybody, right? I mean, that guy's amazing. Yeah, and the only other thing I also had listed, I didn't pull it, but Michael Rutherford's Small Creeps Day is pretty good.
Oh, that's a pretty good album.
Mm-hmm. Anthony Phillips, The Geese and the Ghost. That's a really lovely album.
Beautiful album.
And Tull's not really part of the 5 we're talking about here today, but I like 12 Dances, Divinities, the first album, and 12 Dances with God. And what's the second one called? The something with birds.
Oh, yeah, Secret Language of Birds.
Secret Language of Birds. Those are both really nice albums.
Divinities is with the keyboard player at the time, Andrew Gettings.
Yeah. They're both really, really nice albums. I saw him on the Divinities tour, and that was pretty special. But yeah, so those are my honorable mentions.
Well, another honorable mention is Tony Banks' first album, The Curious Feeling.
Oh yeah,
I'm surprised none of you guys mentioned that. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it the last show I was on. I didn't want to duplicate anything. I wanted to just do something new. So all you Steve Hackett fan base, I love him. I've shown everything by him.
Well,
and Eddie Jobson, I love you, but you're not part of the Big 5. But George, he co-wrote one of the songs on the Bruford record.
Yeah, right. Sahara of Snow, right?
Yeah. Part 2, I think. Not part 1, but part 2.
Part 1.
Cool. All righty. So there we have it, everybody. Another edition of In the Prog Seat in the books. There's some of our favorite solo albums from members of the Big 5. We're talking about Yes, Genesis, Pink Floyd, King Crimson, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. What's funny? So let's see. Who did we not cover in this discussion today? So
Keith Emerson.
Yeah. Right. Not really known for having like popular solo albums.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that glaringly comes to mind. Phil Collins did not come up in conversation.
Well, the first album's pretty good. Mm-hmm.
Now, the first
album.
I
must be going to go on.
Who else? Who else did we cover here?
Carl Palmer.
Oh, yeah. That one is atrocious.
No Roger Waters.
PM record.
No. Yeah, that. Well, I almost pulled out Radio Chaos. Almost pulled that one out.
Oh, well, that's a great record.
Alan White, he's got some solo records. I never heard of
it.
Yeah, the one he did.
Ramshackle.
Yeah, John Anderson sings a track on there. There's a video on YouTube. You got to check it out. It's hilarious. It's so 70s.
Yeah.
Consider Peter Banks. Peter Banks has a couple pretty good ones.
Oh,
yeah, the Two Sides of Peter Banks, Steve Hackett plays on.
Yeah, that's
it's John Wetton. John Wetton played on there too.
Yep.
And Phil Collins.
Yep.
Oh, and John Ackerman.
That's right. So a lot of good stuff out there. So everybody watching, list your 5 favorite solo albums from members of these bands that we just talked about, and be interesting to see what everybody comes up with, and if we have some different choices than what we mentioned today. But as always, I want to thank Anthony, Chuck, and George for doing some homework for this episode. We'll be back at you in a couple of weeks with some more cool stuff. Tune in next week, next Tuesday, for In the Prog Seat. We've got a pretty fun show. I kind of just mentioned it before. We've got Ken Golden, Steve Feigenbaum, and Louis Nasser and myself. We're going to pick our 5 favorite non-English language prog albums. So, all those countries like Italy and France and Spain and Germany and Japan and Hungary and Mexico and tons more, right? Our 5 favorites where the vocals are not in English, but we love them anyway. So I've already been forewarned that Steve has picked some stuff that I will probably have never heard of. So would not surprise me. Louis, if you're watching, so Louis's question to me was, do these have to be albums with vocals? I'm like, yes, not instrumental. Damn.
Typical Lewis, man.
So that's happening next Tuesday, everybody. So stay tuned for that. And we've got a lot more in the prog scene coming up each and every week. So, and also visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Also coming up on the channel. So tomorrow is Wednesday. So new product review today. I've got reviews of the new Nad Sylvan, the new Cirith Ungol, the new Halloween, the new Wolfgang Van Halen Mammoth. And then Thursday is the Monsters Den with Rich Catino, Chris Allo, and myself. We are going to be having a discussion of to remake or not to remake. So we're going to talk about how Hollywood's loving to remake everything. And we're going to talk about some of the horror films that have been remade that shouldn't, some films we hope they don't remake, and then maybe some films that we think might benefit from a remake. So that's coming up on Thursday. And then Friday morning at the Funhouse, Martin Popoff and myself are going to be talking about albums that most people seem to hate, but we like. Of course, got to do that. We've done the other way around before. So stuff that people think really sucks, but we have a soft spot for it. So that's coming up on Friday, and stay tuned for that. A lot more. Also, tonight, Lynn Versace and I will be ranking the albums of the Steve Morse Band and top 10 songs of ABBA. So that's coming up tonight later on. So snuggle up in bed and watch a little Sea of Tranquility till you go to sleep tonight. You got all sorts of content coming at you. I am Pete Pardo for Anthony, Chuck, and George. See you all real soon. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Hey, guys. Thanks.